Welcome everyone. Getting the closed captions up and running while we wait for everyone to log in. Okay, so you should see a red live button. And if you click on that, you can see the closed captions on a separate screen. Welcome again. I'm Christy Bagalow, the Director of Statewide Training. Welcome to our second edition of Military Mondays. I am thrilled to have Nicqelle Godfrey with us. She's an Equal Justice Works Fellow at the Veterans Pro Bono Consortium in DC, and she will be teaching us about non-citizen veterans and the naturalization process. So I don't know about all of you, but I did not realize this was an issue until pretty recently when I saw Nicqelle give some talks about this issue. I thought, oh my goodness, surely if someone has served in the military and completed their service, they are citizens. That is not necessarily the case. So that's what we're going to learn about today. And if you have questions, you can type them into the Q&A box and I'll either jump in or save them for the end, depending. And CLE has also been approved for this. So it's been approved for 1.5 general credits and half of a technology credit. So thank you again, Nicqelle, for being with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christy, for having me. I will just jump right in here and start sharing my screen with you. If you have a question, please put them in the box or message Christy directly. She's going to help us manage our questions today because sometimes I don't see them come through when we're presenting, but please feel free to ask your questions throughout. There'll also be a time at the end for you to ask as many questions as you like. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Perfect. All right. So this presentation is the Veteran Naturalization Assistance Program. This is an Equal Justice Works Fellowship. Like Christy said, my name is Nicqelle Godfrey, and my fellowship is sponsored by the Northrop Grumman Corporation, as well as Covington and Burling. And I am hosted by the Veterans Consortium Pro Bono Program. So today we're going to talk on a lot of different things. So just to give you a high-level overview before we dive in, help you keep your pacing throughout, we are going to address the Veteran Naturalization Assistance Program, or VNAP, as we like to call it. We are going to also cover why veterans are not U.S. citizens, what a veteran needs in order to apply for citizenship, the naturalization process as a whole, creating a virtual clinic, and then lastly, briefly, we're going to touch on the DHS and VA initiative announcement that came out in July. So the Veterans Naturalization Assistance Program, or VNAP. As I mentioned, this is a fellowship project. And here at this project, we serve non-citizen veterans in the naturalization process. This means we assist with everything from evidence gathering to application completion to interview preparation. We also conduct educational training such as this one today. We have three main goals at VNAP. The first is to help non-citizen veterans naturalize. The second is to discover why many active service members are not applying for naturalization. And the third is to discover why veterans are denied at a higher rate than civilians who are applying for naturalization. A little bit of background. So every single year, approximately 5,000 non-citizens enlist in the US military. As of 2018, we knew that there were 94,000 non-citizen veterans that did not have their citizenship. Now that's as of 2018. We believe we are well over 100,000 now, given the 5,000 enlistees per year estimate. In 2019, veterans were denied citizenship at a rate that was 5% higher than their civilian counterparts. And in the last 9 months of 2020, the active service member requests to start naturalization application was down from approximately 1,500 applications to only 10. Now, of course, the pandemic played a lot into this role, but these are all some very useful statistics to help us realize that something right now is not going right with the naturalization process for military members and for veterans. So this is a graph that I really enjoyed because I like visual aids. So I'm going to just take a minute here to talk with you about this. This is the total filings of naturalization since 1907. USCIS shared these numbers with us. We put it all together. So as you can see here, the blue line is for submissions. The orange line is for denials. The gray line is for persons naturalized, and the yellow line is for military persons naturalized. So the color most significant to us is yellow. What I want to highlight for you is that as you can see, from 1907 until about 1979 to 1981 range, the submission and naturalization numbers were pretty neck and neck. They really followed each other quite closely throughout almost a 75, 90-year span. Now, of course, you've got a few differences here and a few differences here, but these kind of somewhat even themselves out through. Then in 1991, under the Clinton administration, things really started to change. We had a massive increase in individuals applying for their naturalization. These numbers, as you can see here, really spiked, and with that spiked the denial rate as well, which you can see reaches all-time high right here. So why this is significant? Okay, so during the Clinton administration, a lot of laws and rules and regulations went into effect to try and manage this massive increase of people coming through the immigration process. Because again, as you can see, for almost 90 years, there had only been about an average of 200 to 300, about 200,000 people coming through the process. And then from 1981 to 1983, it goes up by 1,200,000. The system wasn't prepared for this. So what this resulted in is the need for really quick legislation to occur. The trickle-down effect meant that there was an increase in denials and an increase in a greater effect on military members. Today, we have been able to see that, I'm sure you've heard in the news, there have been a lot of deported veterans discussed recently. The idea of being deported as a veteran started in the 1990s when these rules went into effect to try and curb the massive immigration that we were seeing. And when these rules, laws, regulations went through quickly, the effect on military members was not fully appreciated or expected. The other things I want to highlight for you on this is that you can see for the military members here, this yellow color, like I said, for the last bit, it's been pretty steady for how many people have been applying for naturalization. Our big blips in numbers came in World War I, when this really first was rolled out as an opportunity. And then again here during World War II, again here during Korea and Vietnam. And then what's not well seen here is the Gulf War, but it did have a slight increase in the numbers. So just to give you kind of an idea of what was going on, just a broad overview of the naturalization process. And something else I want to highlight for you as well before we move on. A lot of times when people think about immigration and how it has impacted the United States, they think of Ellis Island or Angel Island, depending on which coast you're from. You see these massive amount of people coming over in ships and trying to make a better home for themselves. Well, Angel Island on the West Coast closed in 1940. So right in this range here. And when we did see a spike in immigration, then Ellis Island closed in 1954, right about here, again, when we saw a spike in immigration. But they still did not handle the immigration cases that we were expecting today. The ports were not set up in the same way as it once was. So anyway, that is the backdrop. I can get a little into the weeds on that, so we're going to move on, but I just wanted to give you that as an overview. This again is a good overview for visual aid. What we just looked at here, I'll go back really quick. This was 1907 to 2019. Again, 1907 to 2019. This talks about percentage of military approvals, so their naturalization approvals over these years. And again, what you can see, percentage of the total amount of people applying. So out of 100 people applying for naturalization here in 1990, 60 of them would have been military members. So way more military members coming through than civilians coming through. And you can see then these ripples that came again, World War II, and again, the Korean War and Vietnam here, the Gulf War, and then since 9/11 here. The laws again changed during the Gulf War, and we're going to go over that a little bit later, but you can see that there's almost no numbers here for military members trying to become a United States citizen. So just another way to look at these statistics. Few more statistics for you. The top 5 countries of birth for military naturalization. The top one being the Philippines, followed by Mexico. Then South Korea and China are tied, and Jamaica comes in at 5th place. So as you can see, a good portion, almost 25%, I think it is 25%, comes from Asia, and then throughout the globe for the remaining percentages, but just helpful to see a little bit more of the background of our veterans and their branch of service. This is something USCIS created. And as you can see, the Army has way more non-citizen veterans, or I'm sorry, non-citizen service members in their ranks. This also has to do with the size of the Army, but substantially more for them. And then the Navy, followed by the Marines, Air Force, and a very few amount in the Coast Guard. I personally believe this has to do with the DoD versus DHS, because Coast Guard falls under DHS, which is also where immigration and naturalization falls under, versus the other branches are fall under DoD. Okay, enough statistics for now. Why are veterans not US citizens? So there are several reasons why a veteran may not have US citizenship. The first and very common one we hear is that they thought they became a citizen when they swore into the military. The oath between swearing into the military and swearing into becoming a US citizen is only 3 words different. It is also a much more invasive process to join the military than it is to become a United States citizen. And some people were misled by their recruiters to believe that that's how the process worked. So because of all these reasons, this very commonly occurs with our clients. Their discharge is below an honorable or general under honorable. So a veteran cannot apply for US citizenship based on their status as a veteran if they have an honorable or general under honorable. They can apply as a civilian, but the application costs approximately $800. So this often will be a reason why they won't apply. They were deployed before their interview. This one happens quite frequently, and I know there are steps being taken to try and fix it, but it's still an issue that we're facing. A veteran can get all the way, or I'm sorry, an active service member can get all the way through their process and just need the interview. Well, it takes about 6 months to wait for the interview, and during that time, they might get their deployment notice and they get deployed. A lot of things are taken care of for active service members once they are deployed, but citizenship is not one of those things. And sometimes there's a misunderstanding, and sometimes they know and there's just nothing that can be done about it. And so when you miss your interview, you have to start the process all over again. A veteran might be undocumented or might have joined on a student visa. You can join the military as an undocumented individual. You can also join. It is possible to go through the process on a student visa. You're not supposed to join on a student visa because student visas are only supposed to be used for education. So what we'll see is a number of or not a number, we've seen enough though come through that joined the military on a student visa, either straight out of college or straight out of school some way. They go to a recruiter's office, they join. The military doesn't really care if you're on a student visa or not. They take you in, and then when you get discharged, that's when it catches up with you, because now you're here using your visa for an invalid purpose. So even though you served honorably, even though you may have been recognized and given a lot of awards and medals, you're still here on a visa and not using it in the correct capacity, and you will be started in removal proceedings because of this. Another misconception is that a number of service members believe they cannot afford the application. This is something we're hoping to help change today with all of you. The application is it's actually free for all members of the military and for veterans who have an honorable or general under honorable discharge. So it would not, should not, does not cost them anything, but this is so poorly advertised. Not a lot of people know the cost. I've heard a number of people that paid the fee and went through the whole process only to realize on the back end they just wasted $800 for no real purpose. And finally, why a veteran does not have citizenship can often be because while you're in the military applying for naturalization, you cannot, you are required to have an 06 or higher sign your naturalization paperwork. Now, this can cause a lot of issues because often an 06 or higher does not know who this enlistee is, why they want to become a citizen, whether or not they are a good soldier, Marine, sailor. They don't know this enlistee, and they're supposed to sign off on the fact that they are good as a military member. And so this can often get delayed. Additionally, 06s or higher are often not trained in immigration law. They get concerned about signing these documents without having assistance or being able to do their own research. And that's not the biggest priority when you've got a lot of other things going on for your unit. So this can cause a lot of issue for military members. It can result in veterans then not having US citizenship. So I'm going to take a pause here because I see we have a couple questions in the chat box. Let me just open that up really quick, make sure. Okay, I think we are all good. Thank you, Christy, for managing that. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this again, I know I said no more statistics, but just a couple more, I promise. This is a map of the United States, obviously, and this shows the applications for naturalization by state in the first quarter of 2021, so this year. And this is not for military specifically, this is for everyone applying for naturalization. As you can see, California is the leader of naturalization cases, followed closely by New York and Florida, as well as Texas. So just as a better idea of where naturalization is most prominently occurring throughout. As you can see here, again, this is the first quarter of 2021. This is specifically for military persons naturalized, so either veterans or active service members. So how many have accomplished their naturalization? So in the first quarter of 2021, Texas had accomplished the most amount, followed then by California and New York, and then North Carolina with Florida not that far behind. What I want you to look at now on this one is this is the pending military applications. So these ones were already approved. These ones are still pending. As you can see, again, Texas, California, New York, Vermont, North Carolina, and Florida are trying to get all of these applications through as quickly as they can, but there are a lot of military applications coming to their doors, and therefore they're having a hard time getting them turned around as quickly as could be. So we can see, again, where a good portion of these applications are falling throughout the United States. This map kind of surprised me the first time we created it, is because I didn't expect Vermont and Washington as well to have so many pending applications, but you know, this is what we were able to learn. Okay. So jumping then into the category of why are veterans deported? We talked about this a little bit ago with the changes of laws that came around during the Clinton administration. But the number one reason, as sad and simple as this to say, is that they're not US citizens. When a veteran gets out of the military, they can often be struggling with something due to their military service. This could be PTSD, this could be MST, a military sexual trauma, this could be a TBI or traumatic brain injury. These can often cause them to have some run-in with the law. And when a run-in with the law occurs and one of our service members or one of our veterans is not a citizen, or this causes major issues. It causes real big issues when they joined the military on a student visa, or they joined as an undocumented individual. So because of both of those things, not being a citizen makes it extremely challenging then when there is a brush up that comes much later down the road. Another reason why veterans are deported is that they have committed an aggravated felony. And these can include murder, assault, domestic violence, or DUI. They also might have self-medicated with PTSD due to their PTSD. I think that one of the saddest things we've been seeing are these DUI cases or these self-medication cases that are so very clearly connected to military service. But for whatever reason, when they go through the immigration process, it's not accurately reflected that they served in the military, either the judge doesn't see it, doesn't know it, or their attorney forgets to raise this as a point. And so these individuals who really do need help from the VA are then sent somewhere around the globe, and are not able to get the VA care that they need to help recover from some of these things. The other reason that veterans can become deported is that they might have some visa problems. Their visa may have expired, or they might have enlisted on a student visa. So I see a question just came in. Let me check that really quick. Okay, so the first question we have is, how does a veteran send in their paperwork without attaching the fee? Is there an additional form? And how negative is the fact that they have been living out of status in the US this entire time because they thought they were a US citizen? Really great question. So when you send in the naturalization application, it's called the N-400. And when a member of the military or a veteran sends it in, they attach a second form called the Certification of Military Service or of Honorable Service, and that's the N-426. By attaching the N-426, it should flag in the system that there is no fee required. Now, personally, here at VNAP, we always mail in the applications. We find it to just be much easier to control where the extra pieces of evidence go and how the application is put together. And so when we do that, we put the N-426 on the top, and that way we just don't send a fee in with that or a check in with that. How negative is it that they've been living out of status in the US the entire time because they thought they were US citizens? It depends. It really depends. If they actively thought that they were US citizens and they can demonstrate either through a personal statement or some form of evidence that they believed they were a citizen, that helps tremendously. If they have a really lengthy criminal history and they've been undocumented, then that's problematic and that's more difficult to get past. So it really does depend on a case-by-case status. The key takeaway, though, is that, and we'll dive into the laws in just a minute here, but as a preview, a lot of service members, to apply as for naturalization as an active service member or a veteran, you have to have served either during a period of hostility or a period of peacetime. If you serve during a period of hostility, it's your statutory right to if you served period, it's your statutory right to apply for US citizenship. If you serve during a period of hostility, then there are certain benefits that can help that don't require you to have some things in place in order to apply. You don't have to prove continuous residence in the United States. You don't have to prove physical presence in the United States. You don't have to have a green card if you enlisted on US soil. So all of these things make that application a lot easier to get through. It's a little bit more cumbersome if an individual served during a period of peacetime. If they're still in the United States, then there's more options available. If there's a concern, though, one really great option is you can apply for your green card and your citizenship at the same time. And then you can say, I am currently applying for my green card and waiting processing, just to show that you've taken steps that way, if there's a concern there. So I'm going to move on to the next section. What does a veteran need in order to become a US citizen? So to apply, a veteran must have served, like I just said, during a period of hostility or a period of peacetime. They must have honorable or general under honorable discharge, and they must have served in active duty, National Guards, or selected reserve of the Ready Reserve. The selected reserve of the Ready Reserve is really important because sometimes people will serve in inactive reserve, and that does not qualify under this. So making sure that there's qualifying service is important to this. What are the applicable laws? There are 2 applicable laws depending on whether or not you served during a period of peacetime or a period of hostility. So let's start first with INA 328, and that's the Immigration and Naturalization Act 328. This applies if you served during a period of peacetime. It requires 1 year of honorable service or general under honorable service. Then if you served during INA, or if you served during a period of hostility, you apply under INA 329. this requires 1 day of honorable service, just 1 day. And it does not, but I want to flag for you that the dates for this do not exactly match the dates at the VA. This can be a real challenge for our members who served during the Gulf War specifically, because as you can see here, the periods of hostility, I shortened it, it goes back to World War I, but more appropriately now, they overlapped with World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, and 9/11 to present. Now, the VA recognizes August 2, 1990 until present as a continuous period of hostility, whereas the USCIS only recognizes August 2, 1990 to April 11, 1991, and then September 11, 2001 to present as a period of hostility. The impact that this has is very big, especially on our National Guard members and our deported veterans. The reason that this is substantial is that if you served in the National Guard, let's start there. If you served in the National Guard and you served during a period of peacetime, we have to piece together enough days of service to equal 1 year of service, 1 year of honorable service. This can be done through the weekend drills, through the 2 weeks every year that you need to show up. And if you ever go active because of either basic training or anything that happened that you had to go active for, be activated for. If so that's challenging though, if you served during 1991 to 2001, because maybe you only served for 2 years and then we don't have enough days to put together a year of honorable service. If you served, or if you were a deported veteran, the reason why these dates are also challenging is that INA 329 does not require you to apply with a green card as long as you enlisted on US soil. So if you enlisted on US soil, then anywhere in the world, doesn't matter where you are, you can start your naturalization application. If you serve during a period of hostility, that is much more challenging to overcome, because you are then trying to find some way that you have a date of honorable service within the period of hostility, or I'm sorry, if you serve during a period of peacetime, it's just much more difficult to overcome, because the fact that we need to prove a year of honorable service and we have to have your green card for the application. And it's pretty much impossible to get a green card if you've recently been deported, or if you've been deported and you haven't been approved yet. It's just so difficult, versus if you've been deported but you served during a period of hostility, you can just skip straight ahead to applying for your naturalization. Now I see there's a question, let me check that. Oh, okay, we're good there. So what are the benefits of applying as a veteran? So for all veterans, regardless of whether they served during a period of peacetime or a period of hostility, it is free. This $800 for the application fee is waived. Additionally, your application is fast-tracked. Now, right now, it's taking somewhere between a year to a year and a half for a naturalization application to be processed, but a handful of our clients have recently shown that it can be done within 6 months. That's a really big gift to have a year to a year and a half shrunk down to 6 months. We weren't really sure what that would look like during the era of COVID, but USCIS in their July 2021 announcement said that this was something of high importance to them to keep the applications close to 6 months. Additionally, applying a benefit for applying for all veterans is that it is much easier with the DD-214. If you have a DD-214, you do not need to prove, you don't need an 06 or higher to sign off on your application. You just attach your DD-214. Also, it is substantial and easier to apply with the DD-214 because you have to prove good moral character. When you're proving good moral character, if you have this certified document that says, hey, this other government entity has said that I'm a really good person and I did really good things for this country, and here it is right here, that just really helps your application out as a whole. What are some specific benefits if you serve during a period of hostility? So first, you can be any age. This affects more of our active service members. you don't have to, it doesn't, all other naturalization applications require an 18-year age or older. You can be any age to apply as someone in the service. You also don't need to prove you only need to prove 1 year of good moral character. Everyone else has to prove 5 years of good moral character. You only have to prove 1. You do not need to prove continuous residence in the United States. Again, this is how deported veterans and military members actively serving who have been deployed can work around this, problem about not being stateside. You also do not need to prove physical presence, whereas everyone else has to prove that for 2.5 out of the last 5 years, they were physically present in the United States. So the naturalization process, next chapter. I like to call all of these documents the client packet. This is what we share when we're doing a clinic to help our volunteers know what we're working with. Each application includes the following pieces: a cover letter, the N-400, which is the naturalization application, a copy of the green card, even if they served during a period of hostility, if they have a green card, we include it. The N-400 riders, those are descriptions or explanations explaining why this application might look slightly different than another application. And the N-426, that certifies the military service. A copy of the DD-214 or NGB-22. And then supporting evidence as needed, as well as the G-1145, which is the contact information form for USCIS. So altogether, this packet will be somewhere between the 50 and 75 page range. What is some needed evidence for a naturalization application for a member of the military? So you need your green card. Of course, there's the exception that if you serve during a period of hostility, you don't need a green card. We tell everyone if you have one, we're going to include it because it can get messy if you don't have one, and we don't want to accidentally trigger deportation proceedings for you. So if you have it, let's just include it. Also, a copy of your DD-214 or the NGB-22. Your marriage documents for each marriage. This means every divorce, every annulment, every marriage certificate that you have. Documents for every criminal charge and conviction. This means even outside of the 1 year or 5 year good moral character requirement. Every speeding ticket you have ever received, you don't have to have a copy of it, but you have to know when it happened, where it happened, and whether or not the ticket was over $500. You need your parents' immigration information. You need your children's immigration information and birth certificates. You need the details of your current spouse's previous marriages and those immigration details. And you need your proof of tax payments for the last 5 years. Okay. Just taking a quick step back on this, that's a lot of information to have to just readily have available for yourself or to be able to dig up. Sometimes marriages end very uncomfortably. You can't just call up your ex-wife and say, hey, when did we get divorced again? Or hey, could you send over that copy of the divorce decree? So we have to do a bit of a paper chase to find all of these items. Additionally, people don't just readily know what their parents' immigration status was or is, and if they had an alien number, what that alien number is or was. They might also not know how their current spouse's previous marriage ended and whether or not that person was a US citizen or how they got their citizenship. So these are challenging things that have to be overcome. These are these extra pieces of evidence. They're needed for every naturalization application that will come through the door, but still it's a lot that has to be found. So we help with this as best we can, but sometimes when a veteran will come to this process, it's very overwhelming for them to try and find all of this. So yeah, just kind of wanted to cover all those details for you. Okay, I want to dive in a little bit more deeply with the N-400 itself. So the N-400 looks like this, very standard government form. And what you can see is part 1, section D, are you applying on the basis of qualifying military service? So we check that yes for every single one of our clients because they are all applying based on qualifying military service. So the N-400 application, it's 20 pages long, and there's a whole bunch of yes, no questions. Some fill in the blank like you can see from this page, but then a whole lot of yes, no questions, specifically when you get to part 12. So part 12, I like to call the "Are you a good person" section. This section goes through all sorts of things that are vague or outdated or oddly specific or asked in 3 different ways to make sure you answer the question correctly. An example that we can start with is number 1. Have you ever claimed to be a US citizen in writing or any other way? Okay, pretty straightforward, yes or no. Then as you go, they ask questions that include, did you support the Nazi government between 1933 and 1945? Okay, a lot of our clients were not born between 1933 and 1945, nor were they, or if they were born, they were very tiny children or infants. But yet we still have to answer all of these questions as we go. What's unique about part 12 is that it also asks questions that specifically trigger a veteran application and make it look a little bit different. And that's where the writers come in. So I'm going to highlight some of those for you here. So this first one we face is number 15. Were you ever a member of, or did you ever serve in, help, or otherwise participate in any of the following groups? A military unit. Well, yes, of course they participated in a military unit. They already told you they were applying based on qualifying military service. So when we get here though, as you can see, based on context clues from number 14, were you ever involved in a genocide, torture, killing, badly hurting, forcing or trying to force someone to have sexual contact or relations, not letting someone practice his or her religion? Okay, they're trying to figure out whether or not you're a good or bad person, and then they throw a military unit in there. And our veterans are like, what are we supposed to do? We did serve in a military unit. How are we supposed to answer this? And so we have very standard language for these questions that we just say, yes, I did serve in a military unit. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1983 to 1985. Please see the attached N426 and DD214 for further information or for further reference. And then we move on. But it's a little bit unusual that the questions are asked this way. Personally, my bias here, I think we should have a specific application for military members and for veterans that should be dealt with differently, but this is what we have to work with right now. Anyway, moving on, number 17, were you ever a part of any group, or did you ever help any group, unit, or organization that used a weapon against any person or threatened to do so? Okay. Yes, the military has definitely used a weapon against another individual and has definitely threatened to use a weapon against another person. But you can tell that's not what they're asking about here, so it's messy. Same as number 15A, you just check yes, you explain that they were in the military service, see the DD214 or NGB 22 or the N426 for further reference. Then we get to number 18. Did you ever sell, give, or provide weapons to any person or help another person sell, give, or provide weapons to any person? Some of our veterans, DD214 says that they worked in the armory or that they worked in the munitions depot. So they would have to answer yes, because their documents clearly state that they did provide weapons to another person. Again, same language, please see the DD214 for reference. Number 19. Did you ever receive any type of military, paramilitary, or weapons training? Okay, again, yes, they received both military and weapons training. Same language as before, please see the DD214. The one thing that I will highlight here is that given that there are an obvious 3, sometimes 4 questions that have to be covered for a veteran's application, I really like to include the medals and ribbons and awards they got while they were in service, because we already have to explain that they served. This is a great time to just repeat what a good soldier, airman, sailor this individual was. Like, look at all these ribbons that they got for serving and protecting this country. Why are we making this naturalization so difficult for him or her? So I like to include all of that in there just to help the application out. It can't hurt to include good things about your applicant. So finally, 2 pages later, we get to number 37, which is the first time they ask, have you ever served in the US Armed Forces? Which they should have started with, but it's okay. So then they ask these, are you currently serving? Have you ever been court-martialed? Have you ever been discharged? Have you ever left the United States to avoid being drafted? I'm sorry, have you ever been discharged based on your alien status? Have you ever applied for any kind of exemption from military service? And have you ever deserted the US Armed Forces? If any of these apply to your applicant, which it might, this is also a place that you're going to need a writer to explain what happened. See what the DD-214 says. If the DD-214 has a really good explanation of what happened, just follow that and go with it and make sure that your applicant agrees that that does reflect accurately what occurred. If not, then talk with them and see, what happened, how can we work on this, what kind of things would you like included to explain what occurred. Number 44, one more in this section that gets our applicants right before the end is, are you a male who lived in the United States anytime between your 18th and 26th birthdays? If you answer yes, when did you register for the selective service? Provide information below. So even if you join the military, you still have to register for the draft. Even if you are not a US citizen, if you are on a student visa, or if you are undocumented, you have to register for the draft. If you do not register for the draft, this can be kind of difficult for you. The key language, though, for this section is that when writing your explanation, even if you didn't serve in the military, what you have to say is, if I had known, I did not register, even though I lived here during this time. If I had known of the obligation or the requirement to register, I would have done so. It's pretty straightforward. I'm happy to share this language with anyone. It was very kindly shared with me as well. What I like to add to this, though, is that if I would have done so. Instead, I joined the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard at the age of 19, and I served honorably, receiving these awards. Please see the DD-214 and the N426 for further reference of this information. As you can see, it's been something that it could be potentially difficult for your application into something that's really good to show not only did I, it's not that I ran from my obligation to support this country, I ran to my obligation, and I did so very well. I got an honorable discharge. I was a good soldier, Marine, sailor, airman. Yeah, so I like this opportunity to just again repeat what a good individual our veteran is. Okay, so we've been highlighting all these things about the naturalization process, the statistics, all this great information that we've just covered. I'm going to take a minute now to pivot and talk about what it's like to have a virtual clinic and to work with your clients. So for the virtual clinic, before we dive in completely, this came about because this fellowship launched during the middle of the pandemic. And although it was a difficult time for everyone, one of the really great benefits is this virtual world that we were able to work in, because it allows us to reach clients all throughout the United States. You saw the map of military applications where the need is. Having this virtual clinic really allows us to reach this need in everyone's home without having them or us needing to fly anywhere around the US. So the virtual clinic is an extremely powerful tool, and one that we've used twice now very successfully. So what are some benefits to the clinic? First, it can help non-citizen veterans apply for naturalization. It also allows them to get through, it allows you to get through a large time commitment for each client. So each application for naturalization takes approximately 3 hours if you are prepared when you sit down to do it. This means you have a few of the questions asked in advance. You have all of your needed evidence. You have the green card in front of you. You have the DD-214 in front of you. You've got all those pieces together, and it's a relatively straightforward application. Not a lengthy criminal history. Maybe they've never been married. They have no children. All of these things can help keep it to a nice 3 hours. So averagely 3 hours. When you have a clinic, it was recommended to me, and I would pass this recommendation on, that you should stick to about 10 clients per clinic. 10 clients means that's 30 hours of work that is being gifted to you by volunteers. And yes, there is prep work involved. And yes, you do need to get these cases ready and train your volunteers. But 30 hours that's taken off the top of the work that you're already doing is a really, really great benefit to the program. It also is a really wonderful opportunity to highlight needed evidence for these cases. My volunteers are fantastic. They come up with great suggestions to help really give a robust defense and explanation and whole application for our veterans. One of my clients suffers from PTSD, and that has affected their life in the civilian world. And our volunteers worked with the client really closely, took the full 3 hours, and then came back to me and said, hey, you know, this PTSD is actually related to MST, it's military sexual trauma. Can you pull some statistics? Can you pull some research? Can you pull a study that can talk about how this impacts your personality, your character, who you are as an individual? Could you pull that to help with the application? And that was great advice. That was a great catch on their part. They also are able to help the clients know that there's a face to it, help the clients know that many people are excited and happy to work with them, and they are helping move the application forward. This also is a really great opportunity for pro bono opportunity for veterans, or a pro bono opportunity for volunteers. A lot of volunteers are looking to get more pro bono hours in, and like 3 hours, including not including prep time that they get ready for this. All of that helps the volunteers a lot. So it's a great win-win for everyone involved. So as an overview, when you're designing your clinic, you need to go through several things. The first thing I like to do is define what your goals are, and define what my goals are for this clinic. The very first clinic we did, we had to decide what it was going to look like. So that first example there, naturalization clinic versus an intake clinic. Okay, what are you hoping to accomplish? Do you want that 30 hours of work that the volunteers will help and get the application moving forward, but a lot of prep work is on you to get that to that point? Or do you want this as an intake clinic, help you see who you can help, if it can be slightly started during that time, if evidence that's required can be highlighted? What are you hoping to accomplish? Now, I personally like doing it as a naturalization clinic, because for me, if someone calls my phone and wants to do an intake, I'm going to do it with them on the phone. And it seems a little bit of a waste of time for me personally, and how the program is set up to do that as a clinic itself. With that said, the naturalization clinic does make a lot of prep work in advance. So what do you want out of it? The next one, how many clients do you want, and what level of involvement and prepared do you want the clients at? So for me, I decided I wanted 10 clients, and I wanted them to be fully prepped for clinic day. I know a lot of people that will take their 10 clients and just say, we're going to do the naturalization application, and then we're going to say what evidence is necessary. Like, you need to go out and find these pieces of evidence. I like to be a little bit front loaded on that, to say, okay, we've got your divorce decree, we've got your DD-214, we've got your green card. Let's give this all to the volunteers, who will then use all these pieces to make sure that your application is just very crisp and perfect, and all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But it's not necessary. You can do it with just the application, then go search for evidence. So what do you want? The next one, what do you want for your volunteers? I wanted CLE credit for volunteers. I've done 2 clinics now. One of them we did not offer CLE. One of them we did offer CLE. I think it's just a lot nicer to your volunteers if you can offer them credit. They have to watch an hour-long training. They have to go through all this process and get themselves up to speed. They're learning so much to prepare for this clinic. I'd like to give this to them. That's the least I can do to help them with that. Thanks, because they've been helping us. With that said, my organization does not have the capacity to run CLE, which is why I wasn't able to do it the first time. We were then able, of the second clinic, to work with my sponsors to make sure that CLE could be offered. So finding a partnership that can help you facilitate that might be necessary, but it all depends on what you want for your volunteers. So you've defined your goals. Next step, create your timeline. This timeline will help you make sure you're on track and accomplishing those goals, and getting ready for the goals, and getting ready for clinic day just generally. And I'll show you what my timeline looks like in a second. Next step, use your clinic date to help recruit interested clients. 2 for 2 now on my clinics. I have launched them, I have advertised them, and I've done it a little too far in advance because we do not get that many calls in until right about a month or a month and a half out. We start getting calls about the clinic. We do the same type of work, whether or not we do a clinic or not. The clinics are helpful to me because of the reasons I highlighted of moving applications forward and being able to help more veterans this way. But if a veteran calls in tomorrow and I don't have another clinic for 6 months, I'm going to take the case, I'm going to help the veteran. And so what I have found is that by putting a date on the calendar and advertising with this date, it encourages people to call in. It puts almost a sense of urgency. They don't want to miss it. They want to be a part of this clinic because they're ready to move forward with their naturalization. It also helps them make that commitment. Some of my veterans are really nervous. This is a very stressful process. They have been denied before, they have been revoked, rejected, any of these things. And so then they get up to this and they, oh man, they don't know, are they ready? What if they get deported? What if they lose their VA benefits? What if all these things? Having a date helps them make that decision, helps them commit to the decision because it's more than just me who's involved in the process that they're working with. And I'm too flexible with my clients. So it helps them realize, no, I have these volunteers that are coming in to help me specifically, not just veterans, to help me. I need to be there. I need to show up. I need to be ready for it. I need to be fully present. Even I need to take a half day from work if that's what's necessary, because I need to be here for this. So then the next thing on the overview of the clinic, I run the clinic through Zoom. I use breakout rooms, which have worked so well for me, but I know that some people are nervous about breakout rooms. And since we get tech CLE credit, I'm going to go through that in just a few slides. I also then assign teams and I send the client materials out in advance of the clinic. I've been told that you don't need to send the client materials more than a day or 2 days before the clinic, but I like to have a little bit more time to look something over when it's convenient for me. If I have a volunteer who's graciously taking a day to be there at the clinic, they might not want to show up at 8 a.m. and not be fully prepared or not really know what to expect. And if they had the weekend before to get a little bit of an idea of what's coming, that's just going to help. So I like to send all client materials the Friday before, a week before the clinic. It gives them the weekend to look it over. Yes, you will get more questions based on that. Yes, that takes a lot more work to be done a week in advance, but it also gives you a little bit of a space to deal with emergencies that might arise during that week leading up to the clinic. I then assign volunteer teams in numerical order from 1 to 10, and assign the clients 1 to 10 as well. These numbers are not a hierarchy. They are to help me know which breakout room everyone is in. And that way it also gives the teams a chance to meet each other and to prepare and make sure they're ready for it. I say teams because I like to have a team of 2 volunteers per client. This can be an attorney and a paralegal, or 2 attorneys, or an attorney and a law student. I just like to have teams because it's just easier if you have another set of eyes, someone else that's watched the training, all those things. If you don't have teams, you don't have enough volunteers for that, you don't need more than 1 person. You technically don't need an attorney to do the case either, because I sign off as the attorney for USCIS. I review everything that's done at this clinic. It is my bar license that is attached to all these applications. So it's not as absolutely critical to have more than 1 person or for it to be an attorney. I just think that it's better if you can, but that's up to you. Sometimes really last minute, a client will back out just like 5 minutes before their clinic appointment, and my volunteers have had to become teams of 3 because they still want to be involved. That's okay too. There's plenty of space for that. I have found my volunteers to be really flexible, and if they don't want to do it, then they're really grateful to have that hour back as well. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to go through a few of the visual aids that I use in order to get this clinic going. So first of all, the timeline. I had an October 22 clinic most recently. And so in prepping for October 22, this is the date sequence that I used. On October 1, I processed a CLE. This is because I do a pre-recorded training that gets sent to my sponsors, who can then take it to their team to do the CLE, and it doesn't need to be done right beforehand. Just get that out of the way. Then on October 8th, about 2-ish weeks before, I confirm the client count. Now, as you can see, that's 2 weeks before. This is just really helpful because if advertising has completely failed and I have maybe 3, maybe 4, then I need to know then that I need to shorten this to a half-day clinic. And that's still fine. You know, that's still really useful. The volunteers will still love it, but I'm not going to be recruiting volunteers nearly as strongly as I would have. Next, the sponsor meeting, that's October 13th. So I have sponsors that check in with me, and they are very engaged and a part of this process. And so I check in with them about, like I said, about 2-ish weeks ahead of time. I guess it's about a week ahead of time. This can also be your stakeholder meeting. If you're partnering with someone who is from a large firm, or who is running your CLEs, or who is managing all your volunteers, they're your stakeholders in this, or even your supervisor or your board that you're of your organization. Whoever needs to know what's going on with the clinic, you should meet with them with enough time to make any changes they might suggest, but also close enough that no major things need to still be done. It shows that you're ready at that point. Then on October 14th, I confirm volunteers. I take the list, I make sure everyone has the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, I pair them, and then I assign them to a client. That just takes me, I give it October 14th again, because I'm working with my sponsors to get the volunteers. They can get it to me at the end of the day. And then on October 15th, I send client files to volunteers. This is a week ahead of time. You don't have to do it this early. I just think it's really nice and generous to do it this early. So a week ahead of time, I send the client files, give them the full weekend to look it over, and a full weekend to watch the naturalization training that's going to take an hour. I understand that attorneys are tight for time, and so this just is kinder. Then the Wednesday before the Friday clinic, I do a lunch Q&A. At the lunch Q&A, at that point, everyone has signed their NDA. Everyone has their client files. Everyone knows whose team is whose, and who their partner is, and whether they're coming in the morning or the afternoon. At this time, they can ask really specific questions. On page 12, part 3, or on page 12, part 12, number 27, it says this: how would we answer it based on our client who did X, Y, and Z? Oh, okay, great question. Let's address it. So that's a really good chance to talk with them. Then October 22, clinic day. I do a full day clinic running from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The morning time goes from 9 a.m. to noon, and the afternoon time from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., from noon to 1, that's my training review time and tech check with my attorneys. We're all human beings. Even when I met with Christy on this call to start it off, couldn't figure out how to turn my mute off, and that took me longer than I care to admit. And so it happens. This gives everyone a nice amount of time to get settled in, get their cup of coffee, get some water, make sure they know, make sure their teammate is there, make sure they all have the same client, make sure their computers are plugged in and working, and ask any questions that they might have. It also gives me a chance to check in with them. So then this, as I said, again, another visual aid. This is my naturalization training. It's there. It's 1 hour and 1 minute long, and this is sent in advance. They can watch it anytime they want, and CLE is processed through my sponsor. So once they watch it, they can turn the form in for that. Breakout rooms. Okay, so I had to learn this for clinic. I know it's not that difficult. I'm sure you're all experts and could teach me, but I'm going to briefly run through the importance of breakout rooms. So this is a fake Zoom meeting that I created to show you all this. As you can see, when you're in the main room, at the bottom of the screen, it says breakout rooms. Click on that. That creates this little pop-up menu. In this pop-up menu, you can create, you select how many breakout rooms you want. So if you have 10 clients, you're going to need 10 breakout rooms. Someone gave me the advice to add a couple extra just so that they're there, but 10 clients, 10 breakout rooms. If you're doing a morning and afternoon clinic instead of just one session clinic, it's important not to reuse your rooms as well, because sometimes appointments run long from the morning to the afternoon, and if they want to wrap up, they need the space to wrap up. So anyway, create your, for this circumstances example, we're saying we have 4 clients, we created 4 breakout rooms. Then you assign manually. Once you assign all of your attorneys manually, it will say all participants have been invited to join breakout rooms up here. So you know you did it right. Then you are able to join the breakout room. I like to do this at the beginning just to make sure everyone's doing all right. They can ask their last minute questions, know how to get me. There's an ask for help option, and I tell them where to find that, and then it'll pull me into their room. So if I want to join a breakout room, I click this button here that says join, and then they say, are you sure you want to join room 1? And I say yes. And as you can tell, here I am in room 1, and I talk with them for a while, then I can leave when I'm ready. One thing I just really want to highlight for you, because I've almost done this too many times, when you are finished with the breakout room, click leave breakout room. You do not want to click in meeting for all or leave meeting. These are very detrimental buttons to click. So try really hard not to click those buttons. Just be slow and methodical as you go through it. Leave breakout room sends you back to the main room. End meeting for all ends your clinic right there. So just a little helpful tip there. And when you leave breakout room, you get this pop-up that says returning to main session. And yeah, so one final thing about the clinics that I want to highlight for you is how to recruit your volunteers. Now, I've mentioned before that I have sponsors. My volunteers come from my sponsors. I would say that's your number 1 go-to. Rely on your sponsors or your stakeholders. If someone is helping you with the CLEs, ask them if they have volunteers that are interested in doing this clinic. After that, use your network. You have wonderful connections. You have all these people that you know that that might be connected or have a listserv or can help you get the word out, or they themselves need pro bono hours. So ask them. Then advertise. You can advertise this pro bono opportunity either with on a social media with a specific organization. You can do it with probably with Christy. I'm sure you could talk to her. But advertise what's going on and what's coming up. Then define your volunteer commitment. Tell them what they're getting in, what they're signing up for. If they're just doing the 1 day, that's a really easy ask because, I mean, yes, it is 1 day, but that's it. Then they're done. And then they don't have to follow up on the case. They don't have to see, they don't have what if it gets approved, they don't have to go to the interview. If you want them to volunteer for the whole entire process, tell them that as well. That's totally okay. And then offer a thorough training. Training is key. Take your time in creating it. Happy to share my slides if you're doing a training, but it's worth your effort to train them well. Then I really recommend offering CLE. It's so much easier to recruit someone if you can offer them a little CLE in the process. We all need CLE. We all have to do it. My last name happens to be coming up this year for having all my CLE hours due in California. So I can say personally, that is something that really is on everyone's mind, especially as you get closer to the end of the year. Okay, our final section, and then I'm gonna open it up for any questions that you might have. Oh, I see one question here. Let me just make sure. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the box. I will keep checking, but this is our final section, and then you can ask away as much as you'd like. So our July 2021 announcement. July 2 of 2021, DHS and the VA announced an initiative to support non-citizen service members, veterans, and immediate family members. I highlight this for you because it means that this is a very active area in the world, in the legal field right now, and it is changing and being maneuvered, and a lot of people have hands in it. So let's talk a little bit about what this announcement said. So the joint initiative announcement its goal is to support non-citizen service members, their veterans, and the immediate family members. This is in response to Executive Order 14012, also known as Restoring Faith in Our Legal Immigration Systems and Strengthening Integration and Inclusion Efforts for New Americans. This has the goal of aiming to raise awareness of the importance of naturalization for military members. So the general purpose is to review, reform, and restructure the immigration process for non-citizen service members, veterans, and their families. I've been to a few ombudsman webinars now, and they keep saying at its heart, it is responsiveness. They're hoping to facilitate better access. They're hoping to establish an online DHS Military Resource Center. They're hoping to review policy and practice, i.e. ensure identification of veteran status so that veterans aren't deported without a chance to explain. They're also helping to improve guidance and work with DoD to create efficient processing to get service members naturalized before deployment and to help members deployed. So what is the VA's role in this? They see their role as supporting DHS and veterans as they pursue naturalization. The VA has these Veteran Experience Action Centers, or VEACs, and they are virtual or in-person events hosted by the Department of Veterans Affairs in coordination with state and community organizations to quickly connect veterans and their families to needed resources. They are also hosting these VEACs along the border to help members get vaccinated. So the proposed changes as laid out in the initiative are as follows. The development of a rigorous systematic approach to review the cases of individuals whose removals failed to live up to the highest values, reviewing removal policies to avoid future unjust removals, new commitment to protecting and expanding naturalization opportunities, creating a resource center to assist service members and their immediate family with issues related to immigration, removing barriers to naturalization for eligible individuals, identifying deported veterans to ensure they are able to obtain VA benefits to which they may be entitled, and reviewing policies and practices to ensure that all eligible current and former non-citizen service members and their immediate families of military members are able to remain in or return to the United States. So these initiative changes. Well, many policy changes are mentioned, as I just did right then. There are no noticeable or specific changes that have been brought about by this announcement, not yet anyway. The only observed change has been the processing time, which originally was 12.5 months to 16 months. That's now down to an average of 11.5 to 17.5 months. They also made the statement that they're hoping to keep it to 6 months. And some of our clients have benefited from that, but it still can take anywhere from 11.5 to 17.5 months. DHS and the VA have also begun a period of review by engaging with the advocacy community serving in this field to try and get some help as they develop and implement these policy changes. So to summarize, the announcement ends with a promise by the DHS and VA to conduct the review in close partnership with the DoD and engage with advocacy communities serving non-citizen service members. We do not have a clear idea on what implementation of these changes will look like. In this announcement, no explanation was given for how the promises of expanding naturalization opportunities and removing barriers to naturalization would be accomplished. The DHS and VA have since mentioned implementation plans through a webinar series, but we have not yet observed those mentioned plans. We anticipate, though, that following this period of review, we will have more understanding of what implementation looks like for this initiative. Okay, how can you help? I'm sure you've all been waiting for this question. The number one way is that you can help by getting the word out. I hope that you've learned something useful from this training today. I hope that you at least know who you can turn to for questions about military or veteran naturalization or how to run a virtual clinic. But I also hope that you can help us get the word out for with our veterans to know their rights, as well as our veterans to know where to turn for help. We also would be very grateful if you would share our contact information or flyer, any information with anyone that you think could benefit from learning more about this, or who maybe just needs someone to talk to about this. Before I turn it over completely to questions, I just want to highlight our next training for you. On November 11th, the Veterans Consortium will be hosting this appellate advocacy training for appellate advocacy before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claim. This will be an in-person training in Miami, Florida at the law office of Carlton Fields, PA. And it'll be and there will also be a concurrent virtual training available. This course provides an in-depth insight into effective appellate advocacy to practitioners who can handle a TVC pro bono matter within 90 days of the training. And attendees will learn about all aspects of litigation process, which include service-connected disability compensation, dependency and indemnity compensation, and non-service connected disability pension, overview of the VA claims process and the chronology of an appeal, the scope of CAVC judicial review, CAVC practice and procedure, commonly raised VA errors and arguments, and persuasive brief writing. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to see if you have any questions that we can answer for you. I believe I see one now in the question box. Let me just check there.
Yes, and I'm
Okay.
going to dig up the link to register for that November 11th event. It's a fantastic opportunity and it's in person if you can make it in Miami. So that's really exciting. So I will dig that up as while you do the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christy. Appreciate it. So let me just read this question here. Oh, so this is a specific case question. Sorry, let me just see if there's a general thing. So I would be very happy to talk with you more about this offline. Let me go ahead and just drop my contact information that's right here in the slide into the chat box because I think this is a much more specific case, and I don't want to give any identifying information out over this. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. So 1 second here, and I will just copy and paste, or I will type in, excuse me, my information here. Yes, the 11/11 event is also going to be online. It will be available. And oh, Christy, thank you so much. Christy has just posted the flyer there, so you have some more information on it. Okay, so here is my email address. Please feel free to reach out to me. That's nicqelle.godfrey@vetsprobono.org. And I can give you my phone number if you'd like. I will tell you right now, we are so backlogged with intakes that the only way to get a hold of me is through email. So I would recommend just shooting me an email if you have a question. But to the anonymous question that we just received, please feel free to shoot me an email and we can talk more about it.
Thank you, Nicqelle. I really appreciate you taking the time to raise awareness about this issue. It's so important to get the word out. So I appreciate all the work you're doing. I did just put in the chat the flyer for the November 11th event. There's an in-person flyer and a virtual flyer. So I'll also send that with the follow-up email tomorrow, along with the recording and the PowerPoint. And I just put the CLE number in there. It's 2108628, N as in Nancy. And I'll send that with the follow-up email too. But what a great way to involve pro bono volunteers and law students. Even if your particular organization can't help veterans in-house, what a great way to involve pro bono volunteers and veterans at the same time. So great information. Let me see if I see any other questions. Oh, everyone's being shy today. I have a feeling they're probably overwhelmed like with this whole new issue. Like we needed other things to worry about, right? Over the past year and a half. Like this was just shocking to me the first time I heard it. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's funny, even telling people what I do for a living, they say, oh, you help veterans of other countries' militaries. I'm like, no, the US military. They're like, oh no. But it's such an interesting, very rewarding field. And one thing that I think has really been so powerful, and I forgot to highlight this in the volunteers, is this has been a really bipartisan issue. Both sides of the aisle have agreed that these are immigrants who are very worthy of becoming U.S. citizens. They have laid their lives on the line for this country, and they just want to become a citizen. And I have seen such incredible support. We've gotten some, we've been able to help some initiatives in Texas move a bill forward through their state Senate. And so that was a really exciting thing to see. But let's see the link for the flyer.
So if you want to email me the links, I'll send them out to everyone. And yeah, sorry if the link on the flyer is not working. It could be a Zoom issue, but also you could probably search on your website, which Zoom will take you directly there after this webinar. I have it set up. So if you remember to do the survey, great. If not, at least check out the wonderful work that the Veterans Pro Bono Consortium is doing, and the event should be on there, I would think. But I'll definitely send it out tomorrow for anyone who's not able to find it. But thank you so much, Nicqelle. It truly does sound like an oxymoron, right? To help veterans with citizenship, but it is a real issue and so important. I mean, we all know how important it is to become a US citizen, and I can't think of anyone more deserving than veterans. So thank you so much for all the work you're doing, Nicqelle.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to stay online too if anyone has some questions and is a little bit shy about them or anything. But I've so appreciated this opportunity. And I just want to say thank you, Christy, for all the work you're doing, especially in helping get the word out about this very important topic.
Yes, of course. And I'm happy to connect anyone with Nicqelle if you have questions. And someone just put in the chat, if you download the flyer to your desktop, then the link will work. So thank you for that tech tip. I am not the tech person to ask any questions. But thank you so much, Nicqelle, for doing this. I hope everyone has a good afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye.